and gentlemen, it's time for...
It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hope you're having a great week so far. I almost said a great Monday because, first show of the week. I was out yesterday as I was traveling back from Arkansas after a wedding, and I just, 9-hour drives, man. Not for the faint of heart, but still had a good weekend. Still had plenty of time to catch up on and watch all the things that were happening in the sports world. Let's start with the WNBA All-Star game, which transpired over the weekend. Now, before I discuss the actual game itself, let me first say kudos to the WNBA for doing something that the NBA has been trying to do and failing at for years and years on end. The WNBA actually gave us an entertaining All-Star game. Okay, it's seriously, like the NFL Pro Bowl game is never interesting. The Major League Baseball All-Star game is always interesting just because, it's a sport that guys actually try at during the All-Star game. And then obviously the NBA All-Star game is always terrible. Okay, the final score is always like 200 and something to like 190 something. The games are never, ever close. And the WNBA created a format in which to get the players to actually try doing the WNBA All-Stars against the WNBA's Olympic team. It's a genius idea. Right? And the WNBA team won 117 to 109. And look, the game was good. Back and forth. Arike Ogunbowale is an absolute bucket. I've got a clip of Caitlin Clark talking about her here in a bit. But here's the thing. You and I wouldn't know that. We wouldn't be aware of how good Arike Ogunbowale is if it wasn't for Caitlin Clark appearing in the All-Star game. Okay, this was Caitlin Clark's first All-Star game of many, obviously. And it's going to lead to growth in the game. Okay, Caitlin Clark played well, 10 assists, 9 in the first half. Didn't score a ton because she was face guarded in an All-Star game. When was the last time you watched in any sort of basketball All-Star game and saw a player be face guarded? She was face guarded. She struggled to score because of that, but her ability to pass the basketball was on full display. She only turned the ball over twice, right? Like that's, all the Caitlin Clark haters out there that love to point to the turnovers. There's your reminder right there. Okay, she only turned it over twice, right? The star of the game, though, was obviously Arike Ogunbowale, someone who felt as if she was snubbed from an opportunity to play for Team USA in the Olympics. And after the game, Caitlin Clark had high praise for Arike.
Literally cannot guard it. And like I said on the broadcast, in my eyes, she's the best one-on-one player in this league. Like she just has that skill. Like she can get whatever shot whenever she wants it. That's how good she is with the ball. So it was fun to watch. Like that's exciting for me. Like I haven't always been on that side of it where, you have a teammate that goes kind of crazy like that. So for me, like on the bench, like they tried to sub me in for her. I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm going to stay over here on the bench. Let her do her thing.
That was Caitlin Clark talking about Arike Ogunbowale, who scored 36 points in the All-Star game. I mean, like she was just incredible. And if you watch the Indiana Fever play against the Dallas Wings in, earlier in the regular season, their final game before the All-Star break, then you were already semi-familiar with Ogunbowale's game. Okay. You watched her torch the Indiana Fever for 24 points in that last game before the All-Star break. And she, like Caitlin Clark, was considered a snub for Team USA. And she completely showed why, right? Scoring in isolation consistently, going absolutely crazy in the second half. Okay? Like, it clearly appears that she felt like she was snubbed, and she was clearly, on some sort of mission to show that she was snubbed. And this is the beauty of Caitlin Clark. This exact moment, this exact segment is why Caitlin Clark should be on Team USA. If Caitlin Clark does not appear in the All-Star game, okay, if she hadn't been voted in by fans, then guess what? Nobody would know about Arike Ogunbowale, right? That is the power of the presence of Caitlin Clark. Okay, she wasn't even great in the All-Star game. She was just there, right? And because of that, she was able to bring growth to the game. She was able to, people were able to see Ogunbowale because of this, and that's why it never made much sense as to why these WNBA players didn't like Caitlin Clark, because it was evident from the moment that she stepped into the league that she was going to bring growth to not just, the WNBA, in general, but also to the personal brands of other players. Okay? And that's what happened to Arike Ogunbowale after this All-Star game. My dad called me, he goes, "Hey Jonathan, did you get to see any part of the game?" I was like, a little bit. I was busy getting it in on Saturday, running 40-yard dashes and putting up some bench press numbers and things. And we didn't talk about Caitlin Clark at all. Okay. He was like, yeah, she was fine. He goes, but Arike Ogunbowale, or however you say it, she was awesome. And she was. Right. And I think that from this point on, more people are going to be interested in watching the Dallas Wings play, even though they're terrible, because they saw Ogunbowale in the All-Star game. And they never would have been afforded that opportunity if Caitlin Clark hadn't been in the game as well. Once again, it never made sense to me why these WNBA players didn't like Caitlin Clark. Sure, she was a bigger star than all of them before she even stepped foot in the league, and I can understand how that would be annoying. I've played the audio before, but the year that LeBron James went number 1 overall, there are clips of guys on the Cleveland Cavaliers being like, we have players that are better than him already. He's not that good. It's going to take him some time, right? That's just the natural attitude of these professionals, and rightfully so, right? It's like you're a professional. They're not. We've never seen them play against pros, and so we don't know how good they're going to be. But in the case of Caitlin Clark, it was pretty evident that she was going to be great, and it was also pretty evident that if she was semi-good, she would have brought growth to the league. And we saw that on full display during the All-Star game, and we could have seen it on full display during the Olympics, but, Team USA opted not to put Caitlin Clark on the team. Was that a mistake? I would say so. Moving on to other things happening here in Indianapolis, not Caitlin Clark related. So I want to go back, or not go back. Geez. Coming up, Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. He's going to join me at 11. We're going to talk about the start of Colts training camp. Starts Thursday, July 25th. And people are excited. I know I am. Football season, we're slowly kind of getting there. Guys are starting to not report to training camp because they want new deals. Jordan Love isn't practicing. Jason Reddick of the Philadelphia Eagles, he's not practicing because he wants a new deal, right? The drama, it's starting to pick up again. It's great. When it comes to the Indianapolis Colts, though, I don't want to hear a peep coming out of training camp. I want to hear nothing but crickets, okay? I want every press conference that every player and coach does with the media to be nothing but boring, nothing but he's just saying what he's supposed to. That is what I want. Okay, I don't want to hear about how great Anthony Richardson looks. Okay, I saw some crap on Twitter over the weekend with Colts fans getting excited about how Anthony Richardson and other members of the offense worked out together between OTAs and training camps. They're locked in. They all went to California and they all worked out together. Woo, watch out. Yeah, every team does that. Every team worth their salt does that. Okay, so who cares? Okay, I want nothing coming out of this training camp. I want Colts stories to be nothing but boring. Okay, I want to remind you of the New England Patriots dynasty. They were the most boring team ever. They were. Okay, during their training camps, they produced nothing but boring training camp stories. There were more concerns than there was optimism coming out of New England when they were at their peak. right? Because they weren't hyping things up. And truly, the only question surrounding the Patriots during their peak, just like the only question surrounding the Kansas City Chiefs now, is whether or not they were going to win the Super Bowl, right? Like that is what it should be like for Indianapolis. There should be so little chatter that we have to ask questions like that. The only question surrounding the Colts training camp should be about whether or not they're going to win the division. It shouldn't be about an Anthony Richardson leap. It shouldn't be about how is Adonai Mitchell going to look. It shouldn't be about Leatu Latu or DeForest Buckner or Zaire Franklin or any of these guys. Okay, like I don't need players or coaches talking about how great Anthony Richardson looks. I don't need it. Okay, let ESPN do that. Okay, I promise you. Just send out some clips on Twitter and they'll be all over it. Okay, I don't need Chris Ballard talking about how great this draft class is. I don't need it. I don't want it. Okay, don't raise expectations too high for yourself. Okay, I need to hear boring because boring is focused. Okay, when you're focused on the task at hand, it's very hard to be entertaining. It is. Okay, Tom Brady was boring. Bill Belichick was boring because they knew and understood that none of this stuff really matters. Okay, like training camp, okay, like we don't need to hype things up during training camp. That's the last thing that teams need. Have you ever noticed that the loudest teams are usually the teams that are the most dysfunctional? Okay, the Cleveland Browns used to be incredibly loud, and that is one of the most dysfunctional organizations we've ever seen in sports, period. Okay, the New York Jets with Aaron Rodgers, they come off as dysfunctional in part because they're extremely loud. Okay, I need boring coming out of this Colts training camp. Okay, when we look at the Chiefs, okay, outside of the arrests, the on-the-field stuff is pretty boring for Kansas City. Okay, the question for them, it's all about the three-peat. They aren't like ESPN in these places aren't even talking about Xavier Worthy, even though he seems like he's going to be a highly entertaining rookie given the speed that he possesses. Despite all that, like I have ESPN on every day while I'm doing my show, just in case any sort of news breaks. You know who they never talk about, even though they're potentially about to three-peat? The Kansas City Chiefs. Be boring. Okay, loud organizations usually mean that they are dysfunctional. You know who else is really loud and never wins in the playoffs? The Dallas Cowboys. Okay, there's something in that organization. Maybe it's the coaching staff. I don't know, but there's something about it that leads to them being dysfunctional when it matters the most. Okay, and these teams that are quiet and that you don't hear news stories about, they usually win. And that's because they're focused and they're ready to win. And that is all that I want coming out of Colts training camp. That's what I want. I don't want to hear about leaps. I don't want to hear about how Anthony Richardson threw, an 85-yard dot to Adonai Mitchell. I don't want to hear about it. I don't. Okay, I don't want to hear about these rookies and how great they look. I don't. I want to hear about how and why this team will win. That's it. All right. If you're not going to give me that, then I don't want anything else. Okay, just give me all of the boring things. Okay, if the Colts are popping up on shows like First Take, Undisputed, whatever, any of these big time national shows, that is not a good thing. Okay, that means that there's something extra going on in that Colts locker room that doesn't point to success. Okay, like it's hard to be focused on work when there's a bunch of extra crap going on around you in the form of relentless media stories. Okay, so give me all the boring from the Indianapolis Colts training camp. Give me all of it. I want boring. You know who had a pretty boring offseason, who we didn't talk about a ton? The Indiana Pacers, and they were pretty all right. So give me all the boring coming out of this Colts training camp. Big show planned today. Zach Hicks at 11. We're going to talk more Colts and just training camp and all those fun things. talking Team USA basketball. I tried to warn the people. It wasn't going to be easy for Team USA as talented as they are. Khalil Ware dominated the Summer League. Okay, the arguably the best player on the team that won the whole thing. He was pretty good. And then I've got a top 10 Tuesday that I can't wait to get into as well. That's all coming up throughout the show. But when we come back here in 4 minutes, LeBron James, man, 39 years old, still just an absolute force to be reckoned with. That's coming your way here in about 4 minutes.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hope you're having just the best Tuesday. Right? Yeah. Today is Tuesday. Of course it's Tuesday. We got to do Top 10 Tuesday, which is coming up here shortly. Before I get into that, Team USA basketball. First of all, Olympics start tomorrow. Can't wait. Going to be locked in the entire time, right? I know Team USA soccer plays tomorrow morning at like 9:30, 10 o'clock. Something like that. I'll be tuned in. Can't wait for that. But Team USA basketball played yesterday and over the weekend. Almost lost a game to South Sudan, and they almost lost a game to Germany. But LeBron James decided to show up. Once again, a few weeks ago, I said that this team wouldn't cruise to a gold medal. It's not because this team isn't very good. It's because the talent around the world is good as well. Okay, like South Sudan had some NBA players on their team, right? They had some G League guys. They had a Duke commit, right? They are a good team. They have a ton of talent, right? Well, maybe not a ton of talent, but they're good. Like they have NBA players on their roster. Meanwhile, Team USA does have a ton of talent, right? And then yesterday, I thought they were going to crush Germany. I didn't think it would be close. I thought they'd be like, okay, we barely beat South Sudan. Tomorrow, or when we play Germany, let's go out there. Let's beat them, by, 15, 20, whatever. And then, kind of put everybody's worries to bed. That didn't happen. They only beat Germany by 4. Now, Germany is a much better team than South Sudan, right? They won the FIBA World Cup last year. Okay, like they've got Dennis Schroeder, who's a pretty good basketball player at the NBA level. They've got Mo Wagner, one of the better young role players in the league. And then they've got Franz Wagner, his brother, one of the best young players in the league in general. With that being said, Team USA should beat Germany by a lot more than 4 points. Okay, look, Team USA is so overwhelmingly talented that they should beat everyone that they play by double digits. Okay, like they are just that much more talented than everyone else, right? And the stories of these games are obviously the fact that they were close, but also what happened down the stretch. I enjoy watching Olympic basketball. I enjoy really just Team USA basketball in general. I watched a lot of the FIBA stuff last year to watch Anthony Edwards and all these guys. And when you watch Team USA play basketball, you learn the hierarchy pretty quickly amongst the best players in the NBA. And when Team USA was trying to come back from down 16 in the third quarter against South Sudan, what did they do? They gave the ball to LeBron James. Okay, from there, down the stretch for the last shot, they once again went to 39-year-old LeBron James. Okay, like they didn't go to the new most popular player in the NBA, Anthony Edwards. Okay, Steve Kerr, head coach. He very easily could have been like, I'm going with Steph. He's hit plenty of big shots for me before. He didn't do that. Okay, they didn't decide to put the ball in the hands of the best player on the team that just won a title, Jason Tatum. They didn't decide to put the ball in the hands of Joel Embiid. Instead, they decided to run their offense through 39-year-old LeBron James. And he came through. He did, time and time again. And it's truly incredible. And then they turn around a few days later and they play Germany. And it was the exact same thing. LeBron James was once again the best player on the floor in the fourth quarter. What he's doing at this age is truly unprecedented. Against Germany, he scored 11 of his 20 points in the fourth quarter, which is insane. He didn't miss a shot. He was 4-4 from the floor. He also pulled down 3 of his 6 rebounds in the fourth quarter, and he continued to play good defense. No one should be doing this at the age of 39. Okay, LeBron James right now should be doing what Carmelo Anthony is doing right now. As of today, Carmelo Anthony travels around the country and he watches his kid play basketball. That's what he does. And that is what LeBron James should be doing right now. LeBron James should have been in Vegas all week last week watching Bronny James make his debut. Okay, he should have been out at Nike Peach Jam watching his other son, Bryce James. Okay, that's kind of the phase of life LeBron James should be in. But no, instead, what LeBron James has decided to do right now is he's just decided to go be the best player on Team USA, the best Team USA team we've seen since 2008, the Redeem Team. Okay, so whether you are a LeBron James guy or not, okay, whether you think he's the best player ever or not, you have to acknowledge how insane this is. It truly is. He's the best 39-year-old athlete ever. Sorry, Tom Brady. Okay, he's the second best basketball player ever, right? And if you put him at number one, like I'm not going to push back. What we're seeing speaks to the level of greatness that LeBron James is at. Okay, like this is insane. And as I've sat here and I've watched it, I'm just like, geez, man. Like I no longer I don't blame this. I don't blame the Lakers for hiring his podcast buddy as his head coach, and I don't blame the Lakers for drafting his kid because he is still one of the best players in the world. Even if he is 39 years old, and even if we don't know how much longer he's going to play for. Because if he wanted to, he could probably play for another. If he wanted to, he could probably wait around and play with Bryce James. Seriously. Like, he's that good. He's still, pretty athletic. Obviously, not as athletic as he was. I saw a clip this morning with it when he's playing in Cleveland. His head is like, he's like looking down into the rim. And it's just like, geez, man. But it's incredible what he's doing at this age. And as I was sitting around trying to figure out what I was going to do for Top 10 Tuesday, I was like, oh, this is easy. So for Top 10 Tuesday, I'm doing the best in individual seasons from athletes when they were over the age of 35. And I'm going to start it off here with Michael Jordan. Okay, I think I've got like 4 basketball guys, 4 football guys, and then 2 baseball legends. 35-year-old Michael Jordan in the 1997 to 1998 season. Okay, the year that Michael Jordan won his 6th and final title. He was 35 years old. Okay, the Bulls tied the Utah Jazz for the most wins in the regular season that year with 62. Michael Jordan was the scoring champ that year, averaged a tick just a little less than 29 points a game, and he was the MVP of the league at the age of 35. Okay, he was great, won games despite the turmoil that really surrounded that team. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and watch The Last Dance, okay? Jerry Krause, oof, brutal. And then, he closes the season, he closes the finals, game 6, by hitting one of the most famous shots in NBA history, the mid-range jumper straight on after making Byron Russell touch the earth, right? It's an iconic moment, right? And it's truly just incredible. Okay, the season that he had that year. Tim Duncan, 2013 to 2014, at the age of 37 years old. He averaged 16 points, 10 rebounds, and 2 blocks a game while playing less than 30 minutes a game. And, if you're an advanced stats guy like I am from time to time, when guys play less minutes, I like looking at stuff like this because it just kind of helps know their impact a little bit more. Duncan was top 10 in defensive rebound percentage, block percentage, and defensive win shares. Okay, like his defensive rating was 97.6 that year, which was 4th best in the league. Okay, Tim Duncan manned the middle of the league's 3rd best defense that year, and the Spurs went 62-20, the best record in the entire league, in large part because of Tim Duncan and what he was providing at 37 years of age. And then the Spurs get to the playoffs, and his impact only goes up, right? As the Spurs dominated on their way to a 5th title with Tim Duncan at the center of everything. Okay, he played 33 minutes a game in the playoffs, averaged 16 points and 9 rebounds, right? And they would wind up beating the Miami Heat in 5 games, right? The final year, I believe, of the Heatles, if my memory serves me correctly. LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh would all kind of split off after that. Next on the list, obviously LeBron James has to be on the list, okay? Like I wouldn't do him as my lead-in and then not put him on the list. And he's had several insane seasons after he turned 35. Like it's, the run is incredible. Okay. So, but the 2019 to 2020 year, the COVID year when he's 35, that's the year that sticks out. In his 17th season, LeBron averaged 25 points and 8 rebounds a game, and he led the league in assists per game at 10, which is insane. Okay. The only other player ever to average double-digit assists at 35 or older was Steve Nash. Okay. And as a 6'9" point forward, LeBron James and the Lakers had the best record in the Western Conference. They won 52 games out of 71, right? Because COVID year, shortened year. And then they head down to the bubble in Orlando. And the Lakers just kind of rolled through everybody. They did. And then eventually they beat a pretty banged up Miami Heat team in the finals. Right. And over the course of 21 playoff games, LeBron James averaged 28 points, 11 assists, and 9 rebounds, which is just utterly insane. Somehow, LeBron did not win the MVP that year. It was Giannis. But, he was first team All-NBA, Finals MVP, all those things. Like, just an insane season from a 35-year-old. Right. That year, he also became the first player ever to win Finals MVP for 3 different teams. Wilt Chamberlain also makes this list when he was 35 years old. 1971 to 1972. That's the season that pops out. Was Wilt Chamberlain still scoring 50 points a game? He was not. He went down to more of a role-playing type player. But I mean, he was still really good. He averaged 15 points a game, led the league in field goal percentage, and averaged 19 rebounds a game. He was great. He was obviously a defensive anchor. When you're the biggest, tallest, and most athletic person in the league, you're going to be pretty good on defense. And then postseason happens. They sweep the Bulls in the first round. They then defeat MVP of the league that year, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, then going by Lou Alcindor. And they beat the Milwaukee Bucks, and then they end up winning the finals, right? Like they finally win a finals. Wilt Chamberlain wins finals MVP, averaged 23 rebounds a game in the finals, which is just absurd. He only sat for 4 minutes. Like just simply incredible. That's the only year that Chamberlain was able to win a title. So that one had to be on the list. Next, Tom Brady, 2021 to 2022, at the ripe age of 44 years old. He led the league in touchdown passes with 43, and he led the league in passing yards with 5,316. Okay. He and Drew Brees are the only quarterbacks ever with multiple 5,000-yard seasons. Okay. The Buccaneers went 13-4 that year, right? Lost in the divisional round to the eventual Super Bowl champions, the Los Angeles Rams. Either way, great year for Tom Brady. Really, the last year he was at his peak powers. He played one more year and then retired after that. I mean, the year kind of feels disappointing because Tom Brady didn't win his 8th Super Bowl, but, he still posted one of the best seasons ever at the quarterback position. Next on the list, Aaron Rodgers, 2021 to 2022, right? That was the year of the old quarterback, right? Aaron Rodgers, also making the list for that season when he was 38. He also went 13-4, threw 37 touchdowns to only 4 interceptions, also threw for over 4,000 yards. He was efficient, won games, threw a lot of touchdowns, didn't throw many picks. That was good enough to win the MVP, with Tom Brady being second in MVP voting that year somehow, some way. Right? And then, unfortunately, as we all know, the Packers once again lose in the playoffs with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback because, I don't know, I guess that there's like a rule in Green Bay that if you draft an elite quarterback, you're only allowed to win one Super Bowl. And that's it. I guess that's just kind of the rule if you work in Green Bay. So next on the list, I didn't want it to be all quarterbacks. So I went deep in the bag here. Deep pull. We're going Jerry Rice, the 2002 to 2003 season when he's 40 years old, playing receiver. Look, just being athletic enough to play receiver in the NFL at the age of 40 is insane on its own. Okay, and then you throw in these numbers that Jerry Rice posted, and it only gets crazier. So he's 40. He's no longer playing in San Fran. He's playing for Oakland. He's playing for the Raiders, where Jerry Rice recorded 92 receptions, over 1,200 receiving yards, and 7 touchdowns. Okay, like the best wide receivers in the NFL are highly athletic, and Jerry Rice is the best wide receiver ever. There's no doubt in my mind on that. But I refuse to believe that he was just an outstanding athlete at the age of 40, yet somehow, some way, he was able to catch over 90 balls, have 1,200 receiving yards, and make a Pro Bowl. And then last football one here, Peyton Manning. 2013 to 2014, he has to make the list of the 10 best, standalone seasons by guys over the age of 35. 2013 to 2014, Peyton Manning, I'm sure, was a painful year for a lot of Indianapolis Colts fans. He was 37 years old, and all he did was post the best statistical season we've ever seen from a quarterback. I'm sure Colts fans weren't bothered by that at all, even though Andrew Luck was decently good at this time. I'd actually be really curious to know, Colts fans, in that 2013 to 2014 season, when you're watching Peyton Manning throw for 5,400 yards and 55 touchdowns, like, are you bothered at all? Is there a part of you that's like, why did we get rid of Peyton Manning? I'd be curious to know, because he was incredible that year. It was his second year in Denver. Once again, the best statistical quarterback season we've ever seen. Okay, he threw for 5,477 yards, which is still the record for the most passing yards in a single season. And he threw 55 touchdowns, which is still the most passing touchdowns in a season from a quarterback. He was an absolute machine in Denver that year. Obviously, they had plenty of weapons around him. Demaryius Thomas, Wes Welker even popped up for like a short amount of time that season. Like they were loaded, just weapons everywhere. And look, it's Tom Brady. Not Tom Brady. It's Peyton Manning. Like he's gonna figure out how to get guys the football, right? And then they march through the AFC, and then they run into the Legion of Boom, Seattle Seahawks. I'm the best corner in the game. Don't you ever talk about me like that, Richard Sherman. And they got trounced, lost 43-8, one of the worst Super Bowls ever. Okay. But either way, like, even though they lost in the Super Bowl in that horrendous fashion, he still won league MVP. He was the offensive player of the year, obviously made an all-pro team, Pro Bowl, all those things. He was simply incredible. Once again, best single season, statistical season from a quarterback that we've ever seen. So that had to make the list. Next, Babe Ruth, 1930 to 1931, 35 years old. Babe Ruth, the great Bambino, one of the best baseball players ever. When he was 35 years old, he hit 49 home runs, drove in 153 runs, and had an OPS of 1,225. That's absurd. OPS is on base plus slugging, for those who don't know. That's just insane production. It just is. Like, that's utterly insane. Okay, Cy Young also makes the list to wrap it up here. The 1908 to 1909 season, he was 41, posted a 1.26 ERA, which was the lowest of his career, in 299 innings pitched, which, look, that's insane. Guys barely throw 200 anymore. Okay, so it's like just to have the arm endurance to throw that many innings and to still be that productive is absurd. You can make an argument that that's the best year of Cy Young's career. He went 21-11 in 33 starts. His whip, which is basically how many base runners you allow per inning, was 0.89. Okay, like, that's insane. Like, he was truly dominant. And like I said, like, you could argue that when he was 41, that was the best year of his career. And that wraps up my top 10 Tuesday list of the 10 best individual seasons from athletes over the age of 35. Shout out to LeBron James for inspiring this list. When we come back here in a few minutes, I'm not a big toot my horn guy, but it's July, and so I'm going to. I'm going to talk about Khalil Ware, who was great. Going to hit on a couple other small summer league things coming up at 11. Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. He's going to join me. We're going to talk Colts training camp, things that we want to see coming out of that. So that's coming up here in 20 minutes. But before that, Khalil Ware, the kid looks good. That's coming your way here in about 4 minutes.
The best takes, stories, and entertainment. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Trucking along here on a great Tuesday. Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts is going to join me here in about 15 minutes. We're going to get into the very quickly approaching Colts training camp, right? Starts on Thursday, July 25th. Can't wait to talk to him about that. Once again, that's coming up in the next segment here in about 15 minutes right here on Indy's Sports Ticket, which you can listen to on the Indie Sports Ticket app, which you can download at the App Store or the Google Play Store. You can listen to my show on Twitter, or you can listen to it on our YouTube page, Indies Sports Ticket. Head over there, subscribe, jump into the chat, do all of those fantastic things. So, speaking of fantastic things, let's talk about me being right. Sorry. I make myself laugh sometimes. Okay. Khalil Ware is awesome. Okay. It was pretty evident from the moment that he showed up at IU that he looked like a guy who was going to play in the league. Okay. He just checked a lot of the boxes, right? Like there are just certain traits that you have to do certain things. Okay. Like when I think about teachers, I think about my wife. She's one of the most patient people that I've ever met, and which is great for me because I just, I'm not very patient. That's why I can never be a teacher. But like, I feel like in order to be a teacher, like you have to be patient. Okay. In order to work in finance or accounting or whatever, like I feel like you have to be good at math, right? Like there are just certain inevitable traits that you have to have in order to be good at certain things. And I think that in order to be a good center in the NBA, like you have to be tall, long, and athletic. And Khalil Ware checks all three of those boxes. And that was on full display during the Summer League. Khalil Ware drafted 15th overall to the Miami Heat out of IU. I'm not the biggest fan of the transfer portal. NIL, get it, totally support it. But transfer portal, and part of it is I see these like absurd things. I was scrolling through and I was reading up on Ware yesterday, and there was an article titled. It was written by a paper like a newspaper outlet in Oregon, and the title was "Former Oregon Star Khalil Ware." I'm like, he didn't play, like he barely played at Oregon. Okay, former Oregon Star, whatever. Okay, like just super super funny. I read it and I was like, that's not true. But anyway, so Khalil Ware played really well in the Summer League. He was named to the first team, All Summer League team. Jarris Walker named to the second team. Okay, so once again, Jarris Walker had a good Summer League. Okay, I don't want to hear anything else otherwise. Khalil Ware, meanwhile, was just consistently dominant on both ends of the floor. Okay, I mean he's a good player. His play style fits the NBA where there's more space and more room for him to operate. Over the weekend, he played a game, right? He had 18 points and 5 rebounds against the Warriors in the Summer League semifinal over the weekend. Then last night, he and the Miami Heat took on the Memphis Grizzlies in the Summer League final, where Khalil Ware was once again dominant, 21 points and 10 rebounds. Okay, and the Heat won. So congrats to Summer League champion Khalil Ware, right? Congrats to him on that. And he was, like I said, he was dominant throughout the entire Summer League. Okay, in his first game, he had 11 points and 12 rebounds, which isn't great. Second game, he kind of got things going. 17 points and 3 blocks. Third game, probably his best game, 24 points, 10 rebounds, and 3 blocks. Then in his final pool game, but before the semifinal, he had 17 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 steals. I mean, come on. Now look, it is the Summer League, right? Like you have to, preface every Summer League take with that. But here's the thing. Like there are certain positions in the Summer League that I feel like it is difficult to judge players, right? Like guys that are winning a lot off the dribble, guys that are, going by other dudes. Like that's a little harder to judge because obviously these Summer League guys, they just don't defend as well as NBA players. I know there's this notion that NBA players don't play defense. It's just not true. Just watch the NBA All-Star game and then watch a regular season game. You'll be like, oh wow, these guys do play. These guys do play some defense. The offense is just insane. So when I see guys do that, I'm like, okay, like it looks good. We'll see how it looks against like real NBA defenders, and then you watch, just guys that have the ball in their hands a lot. I'm a little more reserved on to be excited for. Meanwhile, guys that play like catch and shoot, Like those guys are easy to judge in a setting like the summer league. It's like, okay, this guy knows how to move without the ball. Okay, this guy knows how to come off screens. Okay, this guy can catch and shoot. So like, for example, Johnny Furphy, like clearly looks like an NBA player on the offensive end of the floor because it's like the guy knows how to move without the ball and he can shoot. Okay, right. His scoring isn't reliant upon beating guys off the dribble. So I'm pretty confident in saying Johnny Furphy will carve out a role at the NBA level at some point in his career because he has a few really good skills that he doesn't need the ball for. And I saw those skills on full display during the Summer League. Okay, part of why I'm not worried about Jarris Walker is because during the Summer League, he had the ball in his hands a lot. And, that just won't be the case at the NBA level. When it comes to Khalil Ware, really just big, tall 7-footers in general, if your, role is set screens, roll to the basket, and finish, and you do that consistently, like that's something that usually transfers decently well. So when I watched Khalil Ware, and I watched a lot because I like watching the Heat, I like watching the guys that organization drafts. Okay, like there are certain players or certain, I guess, executives, GMs, and teams that when they draft a guy, it makes me feel better or worse, I guess, on my stance about them. For example, Khalil Ware. When Eric Spoelstra and Pat Riley decide that they want you, that means you've got something positive about your game. Okay, that means that you have something in your game that they think is going to stick. Okay, if there's a player that you like and Brad Stevens drafts him, you're like, oh, this guy's going to be great. This guy's going to stick because Brad Stevens took him. And the Miami Heat, that organization, obviously fall kind of in that realm. And so I like, not only watching Khalil Ware, who they took with the 15th overall pick, but just all the other guys, right? And it's not surprising at all that they went 6-0 because that's an organization that knows what they want and they know how to win. And so they go out and they get guys that checks those boxes. And when it comes to Khalil Ware, he checks every box of an NBA big guy already, and he may develop the optional box at the bottom, which I'll get into here in a second. Khalil Ware finishes around the rim at a high level. Okay, like you've heard Dan, who knows more about basketball than I do, especially the way that like things look. He said it throughout the year at IU. He said by the end of the year, quote, Khalil Ware made offense look easy. Right? And when he's around the basket, when he's around the rim, he does make offense look easy. Right? With little flip shots, right? He's got good touch, he's got really good hands, so he can obviously catch the ball. Made some decent passes from what I saw, out of the short roll, which is impressive. So like he checks a lot of these boxes. He can rebound. He can block shots. He shot it well from 3 at IU. He shot 40%. He didn't take that many threes, but that's definitely an area of his game that if he develops, and he can be, a 38% 3-point shooter. And you know what? If he can be a 37% 3-point shooter at the NBA level and shoot, 3 or 4 a game, then that's just going to take his ability, his production, and all those things to another level. Like if he can really step out and shoot it, he's going to be a real problem for teams in the NBA, right? And I think he's really going to help Miami out. It's going to allow them to move Bam out of bio to the power forward spot, which is probably where he should play, given that he's like, 6'9" or whatever. So I don't know. We'll see how he looks when the real NBA starts. He's a little small, right? So when he plays against, bigger dudes, Steven Adams, Zach Edey, Jonas Valanciunas, guys like that, he may struggle a little bit just because those guys are so much bigger, but I wouldn't be overly worried about it. The dude's only like 20 years old, so he's got what seems to be a pretty decent future coming his way. Coming up here in about 5 minutes, Zach Hicks, host of Locked On Colts. We're going to talk Colts training camp. We are not that far away from it. Okay. Thursday, July 25th. It's coming. It starts. And I cannot wait. Okay. It's going to be good. I hope we don't hear much coming out of Colts camp. I hope this is a focused team. Okay. Like I know we're going to get videos of, Anthony Richardson dropping dimes and doing those things. But ultimately, like, I don't want to hear much. I want to hear a team that's focused. I don't want to hear a lot of drama. I don't want to hear a lot of controversy. I want to hear a team that is focused, ready for the regular season, and feels like they can win the division. At a minimum, a team that feels like they can make the playoffs. I'm talking to Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts about all of that when we come back here in about 5 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for
It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
The Real Jonathan Smith Show, hour number 2 coming your way. I think everyone has Thursday circled on their calendar, July 25th. That is the start of Colts training camp. Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts also writes for the Colts as well. He joins me. Zach, before we talk about training camp, we were talking a little bit off the air about college football 25. Just tell my audience how much you've played again. That way they don't think I'm insane.
Oh man, I think I'm on year 4 of my dynasty now. Like I just started year 4, so I'm not like into year 4, but like, man, I'm playing most of the games too. Recruiting takes me a long time. The off season, I'm like really in depth in it. So it's got to be in like the 20s or 30 hour mark already with this game. I love it, man. I love it. It's taking up all my time, and I got to take a step back to get ready for Colts football here coming up. But it's such a good game. I highly recommend it for anyone who hasn't got it yet.
Yeah, that's kind of, I'm in a similar boat. I'd be further along in my dynasty, but I'm a bit of a sicko. The first thing I did was I took the playbook I thought that I was going to use, and I went through every play and singled out all the ones that I like. My wife was like, Jonathan, what are you doing? You don't like play video games? And I was like, well, this hasn't been out for the last 11 years. So sorry.
Yeah. No, dude, I'm running like the Air Force offense a little bit. I did some Wildcat stuff in there. Like, it's fun, man. I have so much fun. My goal line Wildcat is unstoppable. It's a blast.
Dude, it is a blast. It is a blast. But so is Colts training camp, which is quickly approaching. And what is the biggest question you have about, whether it's the team or the coaching staff, about specific players? What's the biggest question you have about the Colts heading into training camp?
Yeah, so, I mean, aside from the secondary, which we can certainly talk about as well, but I think the biggest question for everyone that covers this team, who watches this team, everyone who's covering it from afar, who's doing national stuff, it's what are we going to get from Anthony Richardson this year? Is it going to be another 2 or 3 games like it was last year, and the injury thing is just going to keep following him, which certainly could happen because we've seen that with NFL players? Or does he get out there and look like he did last year, which was fine, or does he take that next step and really vaunt this Colts team into being a really dangerous AFC team? I think there's a lot of different routes that it could go. And basically what the Colts whole season comes down to is the play of their young quarterback. And I know you could say that about pretty much every team. But when it comes to the Colts, obviously, they invested a lot into Anthony Richardson. Shane Steichen was specifically brought here for a quarterback like Anthony Richardson. And we only got to see a little taste of it last year. And the little taste we saw, I mean, they came back down 3 scores against the Los Angeles Rams, had some really good starts against the Texans and Titans. It's just, can he stay healthy and can he keep progressing? So I know training camp's not going to really give us the answer on that one. I think more so once the season starts is when we're really going to get our answer on that. But it's really the biggest question that anyone can really talk about with the Colts. And it kind of puts everything else on pause is, what are we getting from the quarterback this year? Are we going to have to deal with another year of a backup? Are we going to get a young rookie? Or are we going to get this kid who takes that next step and ascends into, a really, really good place for the Colts?
Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. So I have to ask a follow-up question with this, because I've heard, my audience has heard, I've talked about it, Mina Kimes of ESPN and Kay Adams and Orlovsky mention Anthony Richardson as a candidate to, quote, like take a leap or to take the next step, as you mentioned, but there's never any context behind that. So when you talk about Anthony Richardson taking the next step, like what does that mean? Like what does that look like?
Yeah, so I think the one player that we can, again, it's hard to make the comparison to this player because this player is the ultimate outlier. It's the guy that you really shouldn't compare to, but stylistically, just feel-wise, I mean, it feels a lot like Josh Allen, where Josh Allen, his first year of play, now he played more games than Anthony Richardson, but it was only like, I think 8, 9, 10 games because he also missed time with an injury to his throwing arm. But you saw in that first year of play with Josh Allen where, okay, look, the running is good. He's a threat in the red zone, does some really good things. The big arm is there, but there's still some misses mechanically. They're still not seeing the field perfectly. And, that will come with time. And again, progression is not linear. It doesn't always mean it's going to get to that great place. But if you're trying to project like a positive outlook for Anthony Richardson. You can look at what Josh Allen was able to do from year 1 to year 2, and then obviously now where he's a perennial MVP candidate, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and a threat to go deep in the playoffs every year. I'm not saying that we need to see Richardson go from what we saw last year to the heights that Josh Allen's at currently, but just that jump that Allen made from year 1 to year 2, where the completion percentage went from, I believe, like mid 50s to like low 60%, where the overall running and stuff like that was a little more controlled. I know Allen's a little crazier than even Richardson, and he gets away with a lot of it, but some stuff like that too, still being a big time red zone threat, and just getting the P's and Q's a little bit better when it comes to reading downfield, getting to his check down, and being quicker with his decision making. I think those are some logical steps that Richardson can take. And again, when you have an offensive coordinator like Shane Steichen, or a head coach that calls plays like Shane Steichen, it makes life a lot easier for you as the quarterback. He's going to tailor this offense to what Richardson can do. So as long as Richardson is taking those positive steps in training camp, he's seeing the field better like Allen was able to do from year 1 to year 2. I think a breakout could be something like Josh Allen year 2, where, again, it's not like a Pro Bowl season, but it's like, okay, like this is an exciting young quarterback. Like, he's pushing the envelope a little bit, and we could even see a bigger step, the following year. So I think that's more realistic for him. Obviously, the sky is the limit for Anthony Richardson. Like, it wouldn't shock me whatsoever if he plays a full 17 games and he ends up being this top 10-ish quarterback, because that's just what his potential is. But it's all about where he's able to take it in year 2 and what he was able to take from his limited experience there on the field in year 1.
Without a doubt. Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. With Anthony Richardson, you mentioned his ability to run. You also mentioned the injury history. If you were Shane Steichen, how would you kind of manage calling designed runs for a guy that, was obviously hurt last year, got hurt a decent amount at Florida? And so you obviously want to keep him clean, but you still want him to use his legs, because that's part of why you drafted him 4th overall. So how do you think Steichen will balance that?
Yeah, at the end of the day, injuries are part of football. They're going to happen, and you want to protect your quarterback as much as possible. But I think when it comes to protecting them, like on the run and stuff like that, like the only real risk that you run with that is you're exposing the quarterback to a few more hits. Like, I'm not going to sit here and deny that guys like Richardson, Jalen Hurts, Cam Newton, Lamar Jackson aren't exposed to more hits, because they are. But quarterbacks are going to get hit regardless. It could happen in the pocket. It could happen outside the pocket. It could happen in the run game. You could obviously mitigate that by just not calling designed runs. But like you said, you take him 4th overall because of that big playability. So I think really the onus comes down to how Richardson's going to protect himself. I know he's 21, 22 years old. You have a lot of faith in your own body when you're that age, and your ability to run over everybody and sustain hits. But as you get older, as you wise up, as the sores pile up in the morning and it hurts to stand up in the morning, you start to realize, I got to start protecting myself. So I think if Richardson is really like studying guys like Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson, where when those guys get into the open field, they're using their full speed, but once a defender closes in on them, it's not really so much fighting for extra yards. It's more so, slowing down, getting down, falling with the fall itself, and making those impacts on the ground not as hard. That's one way that he can really survive. But I think, for Shane Steichen to have this offense really clicking and for the Colts to be successful, you still need to have quarterback runs in here. Maybe it doesn't need to be like 20 times a game or anything like that, but you still got to have some of them in there just to keep defenses honest. I think it just comes down to, will Richardson kind of adapt like the Jalen Hurts and the Lamar Jacksons, where those guys earlier in their career, they were running over guys, they were going crazy, and they suffered some injuries themselves. And then they learned to kind of taper it down a little bit and fall with their falls and slow down and run out of bounds more. And it has led to better longevity for those guys. I think if Richardson takes that path, I think the Colts can still keep the QB run game and the design QB runs as an option in this offense.
Yeah, no doubt. And when I look at the Colts and their offense, I think that when they're in trouble and they need to move the ball, I think they're going to be very capable of running the football between Richardson and his explosiveness and Jonathan Taylor. When I look at the defense, though, I'm a little more concerned about like what's the thing that they're going to be able to lean on? Like what unit are they going to be able to lean on when things get tough? Heading into training camp, like what do you think kind of the strength of the defense is?
Yeah, I think for the Colts defense, it all lives and dies by that pass rush. Whatever we're going to get out of the pass rush this year is how good that Colts defense is going to be. If the guys who were clicking last year, who, they had a handful of guys who are well within that, 7 to 12 sack mark. I mean, it depends on who you look at, Pro Football Focus or Pro Football Reference, whatever it is. But by Pro Football Focus, they had, 4 or 5 guys that were 8+ sacks. And by Pro Football Reference, I think it was, 6+ sacks for those guys. But yeah, if those guys are clicking like they were last year, and then this high upside pass rusher they just added, and Laiatu Latu comes in here and he's doing what he was doing at the college level, then this pass rush could be one of the better pass rushes in football. I mean, we saw they were third in the NFL last year in sacks. The pressure wasn't as consistent as what you would like it to be, but that's what Laiatu Latu is here for. Like, if he can add some more consistent pressure there and they can keep the sack numbers up, this defense can be one of the best pass rushing defenses in football. They can drop more guys in the coverage as a result because you only have to bring 4 or 5 guys when you have, that quality of pass rush across the board. So I really do think, whether this Colts defense is going to be, the 32nd best in football, the 20th best in football, the 10th best, or the first best in football, it really comes down to what we're going to get out of the pass rush. If guys take a step back and Laiatu Latu's not ready, this secondary is going to get ripped apart because they're just young and inexperienced. And, again, we could talk about that all we want, but if this pass rush is going crazy, like they certainly can, then the secondary is going to have the life a lot easier for them. They're going to be able to capitalize on mistakes and look really good out there. So if you're really looking for something to lean on with this Colts defense, it's that pass rush and just the defensive line in general. I mean, DeForest Buckner, Dio Dangbo, Kwity Paye, Samson Ebukam, Laiatu Latu, Tyquan Lewis. I mean, this is a good pass rushing unit that has a lot of quality pass rushers. It just comes down to, these guys producing next year.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I fall with you, especially with, you mentioning just kind of how young and how many question marks there are on the back end. Once again, joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. And I know you and we discussed this around draft time, I believe. The Colts still haven't signed like a veteran secondary guy, like a safety or a corner, and there are definitely some available on the market. Why do you think that hasn't happened yet?
Man, I'm not sure. I get it at corner. Like Flowers is coming back. Jones and Brent, you got them some time as rookies, and they showed some good things. You still have Kenny at corner. You brought in 2 rookies and Simpson and Abraham at corner. Darrell Baker Jr. I thought did some good things despite some bad things as well, but some good things in there. Like, I get it at corner. I really do, but it's hard for me to look at safety, man. It really, even if you have the most faith possible in Julian Blackmon, which I don't know how you can sell that to me when they let him be on the market for a month and only gave him like a near minimum deal to come back. So what does that show with your faith in him? And then you have Nick Cross, who has been on and off the bench for 2 years. And while he played fairly well with Blackmon last year, we saw it fall apart when Blackmon was out of the lineup again, like at the end of last year. And Blackman's not really known for finishing seasons. And then behind those guys, you just don't really have anybody. I mean, Rodney Thomas has done some good things in his 2 years as an NFL pro, but he kind of lost the faith of the coaching staff late last year. They put a linebacker at safety before they put him in there when Julian Blackmon got knocked out for those final 2 weeks. So I don't know where the trust is there. And then after Rodney Thomas, we're talking about guys where 90% of the listeners have no clue who I'm talking about. We got Trevor Denbo, we got Marcel Dabo, Kendall Brooks, I think is his name out there. Like, these are not like NFL caliber players, or if they are, they're special teamers. So I'm not sure what the Colts are doing at safety. I kind of get it at corner because like these young kids can all kind of play at least a little bit, but at safety you've got 1, maybe 2 playable guys, and one of those playable guys has never finished an NFL season. So I'm with you. I mean, I've been calling for it all season. Like, please just sign someone. It can be Justin Simmons, Quandre Diggs. Those are the bigger names, but it can also be like just a guy who's been around and done some things on the field. Like, just a guy who can feel comfortable putting out there, because as of right now, going into the season with 1, maybe 2 playable guys at safety just doesn't feel like a great plan.
Justin Simmons, man, you said it. That's who I want. He's one of the, I believe, of all the safeties that are, of starting caliber on the market. I believe he's the youngest one. He's like 27, 28. He's been great in Denver. I'm with you, man. That's the guy I want. I'm with you on corner. Like, they've at least had guys who have taken some snaps there, but man, the safety is just, like you said, it's pretty thin.
Yeah.
So, but
and I know they struck out at safety too. Like, they went for Xavier McKinney, and then his market just got absurd with the Packers. Like, the Packers gave him like $20 million a year, and that's tough to match at a safety position. So like they struck out, but like I just hate the response of like, oh shucks, we tried. Like, I'm not saying that's what they're saying, but like, if that is their response, it's like, okay, well, go to plan B or C or D. Like, there should be other plans here. It should just be like, oh shucks, we tried it, McKinney, and darn, they went up to a crazy number. Like, Simmons is out there. Simmons is a great single high safety. You're missing a single high safety. You're one of the few teams in the NFL that does single high, where Simmons can thrive like he has in Denver. I feel like it's an appealing situation for both sides. I don't know why it's not done. The Colts have like $20 million in cap space too. Like, just give it to him and let's go.
I'm so glad you brought out the cap space, because
like it's there. Let's do it.
Yeah,
let's do it.
And I don't know if you've noticed this, but Colts fans are always very excited about the cap space that the Colts have heading into every offseason. And then it seems like year in and year out, they don't use it. And this is a great opportunity to add not only a good player, but a guy who's younger. Like most guys that hit the free agent market aren't 27, 28, however old, Justin Simmons is. And so I'm with you. Like, let's go. Let's do it. The money's there. Like, let's make it happen. And so we'll see what they wind up doing, though. But obviously, for me, like, training camp, like, it gets me excited because like football season's here. But in terms of like how the players play, I'm not overly invested unless it's the rookies, because this is the first time we're going to see them, in like full pads and all those things. So what are your expectations for the rookies heading into training camp?
I'm just hoping to see some flashes out of them. Like, I think that the Colts have set up these rookies in a good spot to where none of them have to be like day one superstars for this team. Like, it would be nice if they were. Like, I'm not complaining if they end up being that. But if Laiatu Latu takes a little bit of time, that's fine, because we have Kwity Paye, Dio Dangbo, Samson Ebukam. If A.D. Mitchell, still needs some time to gel with Richardson, you still have Pierce, you still have Downs, you still have Gould, like these other guys who are quality players. Ashton Doolin's coming back. So I think they're setting these guys up to where go at your own pace, get in here, get acclimated, and get your legs under you and learn the playbook. And once you're ready, like, if they pass someone on the depth chart, by all means get out there. But I'm just excited to see the flashes. I'm excited to see some new explosive talent on the field. I mean, Mitchell and Laiatu in particular, like, those guys are superb athletes who did some great things in college. And by all accounts, they were doing some really good things in minicamp too. So to just see them out there in front of the fans, in front of the coaches, in front of media, like, it's going to be fun to see those guys. And then obviously all the other players too, like Jalen Carlisle and the day 3 guy at linebacker, I think is going to be really fun to watch. Gould, who I just mentioned, his speed is going to be fun. So yeah, it's always great seeing the rookies out there, seeing the young, fresh legs out there at their first training camp and seeing how they adjust.
Yeah, I completely agree. Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. 2 more questions for you, and then I will let you go. So the Colts have a million tight ends.
Yeah.
Which, if any of them, do you think will kind of separate themselves from the pack? I really liked Granson last year. He didn't get a ton of snaps, but he was the guy that I was like, I like this guy. I kind of wish he was on the field a little bit more. I felt like every big third down, he seemed to be the guy who caught a pass for a first down. So I really like him. Is there a guy, obviously Jelani Woods, people are excited about him, but is there anyone else that you think could potentially separate themselves from the rest and really kind of emerge as tight end number 1?
Yeah, I mean, man, we got like the 5-headed monster at tight end, and we're just going to roll with all 5 of them splitting snaps perfectly. But no, I think there's a case to be made for every guy, which is hilarious at this point. Like, obviously you want it to be Jelani Woods because that's the player you invest the most in. He's got the most athletic upside. And just if he can even like scratch his potential, we're talking about a really, really good tight end. So you want it to be Jelani Woods. Like, that's who you're hoping. But besides him, I think, Drew Ogletree and Kylan Granson both showed great chemistry with Anthony Richardson early last year. I think Will Mallory, the rookie tight end from last year, did some good things with Gardner Minshew late in the season. And I think Marley Cox is still he's still him. I'm not saying that that's a good or a bad thing. He can still give you some steady play if anyone disappoints, and he can be your, third or fourth guy. So I think it's really up for grabs. I think it's, it really comes down to just how I think it's so important how camp is for these guys, because if Marley Cox goes into next season as a starter again, that means everyone else failed, because we know Mo's going to be Mo by the end of camp. All these other guys need to surpass him, which they obviously can. But I'm really excited to see how it all comes down, because getting Woods out there for the first time under Steichen, getting Ogletree back out there, Mallory did some good things and he was flashing. I couldn't tell you who's going to shine in this group, because I feel like they're all kind of at the same level, and it's just, who's going to show out in camp that can show that they can take one step forward above the rest.
Yeah, that's kind of, in terms of positional battles, that's kind of where I'm tuned in the most, because like you said, there's a lot of guys in there, and Jelani Woods especially, like you said, the Colts have invested quite a bit in him, and I hope that investment pays off. Last question for you, Zach, and I will let you go. Are you excited about the Colts doing joint practices with the Cardinals and the Bengals? And in those practices, what do you think we'll learn about the Colts?
Yeah, I'm especially excited about the Cardinals one, because I think the biggest issue that you come across when it comes to joint practices is coaches, but not coaches butting heads, yelling at each other or anything, but just in how they run practices and having those mesh together and run fluidly. And getting Gannon in here, who has worked with Shane Steichen in the past, those two have that chemistry, obviously, from their time in Philly. I think it's going to make that a really smooth, 2-day period with those two teams. I think they're going to have a good cohesive plan. And also, I mean, when it comes to the Cardinals, they're a fun, young, energetic team that's well coached. So I think that's going to be a really good team to see. And it's going to be Marvin Harrison Jr. coming to Indy. I think that's, what everybody wanted in the pre-draft. We're going to finally get it, but it's going to be in late August instead of, him wearing a Colts uniform. So that'll be fun. And then Cincy, Cincy's always a fun time. I know we're not really going to be able to see much of it because it's going to be at the Cincy one, but we're going to learn a lot. I mean, look, when these joint practices, the biggest things you learn are, who are your competitive guys, who's going to start the fight, and who's going to finish the fight when it comes to these things. And there's going to be a bunch of them. These guys get chippy, and it's always a fun time getting ready for the regular season.
It really is. I can't wait for it, Zach. Thanks for your time, and I'm sure we'll hopefully do this again at some point during training camp, and hopefully several more times during the actual season.
Awesome, man. Absolutely.
See ya. That was Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. Make sure you check him out. You can follow him on Twitter at ZachHicks2. Right, he writes about the Colts as well. Just does a really, really good job covering the Indianapolis Colts. Coming back here in about 4 minutes or so. Caitlin Clark. Just, you can't deny the Caitlin Clark effect at this point. I'll tell you why when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Unadulterated sports talk with unfiltered takes. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Hope you guys are having a nice Tuesday. I know I am. Here's what you need to do. You need to head over to the YouTube stream or the Twitter or X stream, and you need to watch there because I gotta be honest. I brought some drippy drip today. I'm sporting. So look, I've just kind of accepted that I'm now officially a jersey collector. Okay. Like I was looking at my closet the other day and I was like, geez, I've got like 11, 12, 13 jerseys up in here. And that might not be right. But either way, like I was looking, and I was like, I guess I got to go get more. I guess I'm just going to collect these things now. So I got a new one in the mail last week on Friday. And I was telling my wife, Amelia, I was like, Amelia, I cannot wait to do a show on Tuesday because I'm going to wear this new jersey. It's going to be so cool. I think people are going to like it. So head over to YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, subscribe, join the live, check out this new jersey I'm rocking, or you can head over my Twitter at __ Jonathan Smith, and you can watch the stream there. I'm sporting a New York Nets. This is ABA. New York Nets Julius Erving jersey. Pretty unique. I like it. I think it's cool. I got more things coming on the way because hoops is just, I like hoops. And because I like hoops, I watched the WNBA All-Star game over the weekend. Kudos to the WNBA for doing what the NBA has been unable to do in its history. Okay? They provided an entertaining All-Star game. The NBA hasn't done that in years. Okay? Doing what the WNBA did is it's simple genius. Doing the WNBA All-Stars against the Olympic team. Like that, like, is there any other way to do it after seeing this? Like that's incredible. Like seriously, it is. And the WNBA team won 117 to 109. And this was obviously Caitlin Clark's first All-Star game. Therefore, for me and like many other people, it was their first time watching the WNBA All-Star game, right? Because people are going to watch whatever Caitlin Clark is a part of if she has a basketball in her hand. Okay? That's just kind of the way that it works, right? And some people like it, some people don't. I don't really feel one way or the other. I just realized that this is how it is. And Caitlin Clark played well. 10 assists. She had 9 in the first half. And if Arike Ogunbowale hadn't gone crazy, then Caitlin Clark probably would have broken the All-Star assist record. But hey, it's whatever. She was face guarded, right? I think that's part of why she struggled to score the ball because of that. But her ability to pass the ball was on full display. 10 assists, only 2 turnovers. Also, when was the last time you watched an All-Star game and saw someone get face guarded? It's the first time in my life I've ever witnessed that. And it was, incredible. Made it less fun to watch, but that's okay because the star of the game was not Caitlin Clark. It was Arike Ogunbowale, who went absolutely nuts. Okay, if you watched the Dallas Wings play against the Indiana Fever in their final game before the All-Star break, then you saw her, Arike Ogunbowale, torch the Fever for 24 points. Okay, like Caitlin Clark, Ogunbowale was considered a snub for Team USA, and she showed why. One-on-one, man, she can go and absolutely get a bucket whenever she needs to. Okay, like it is incredibly impressive. And Caitlin Clark was asked about Arike after the game, and here's what Caitlin had to say.
Literally cannot guard it. And like I said on the broadcast, like in my eyes, she's the best one-on-one player in this league. Like she just has that skill. Like she can get whatever shot whenever she wants it. That's how good she is with the ball. So it was fun to watch. Like that's exciting for me. Like I haven't always been on that side of it where, you have a teammate that goes kind of crazy like that. So for me, like on the bench, like they tried to sub me in for her. I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm going to stay over here on the bench. Let her do her thing.
That was Caitlin Clark talking about Arike Ogunbowale and her going absolutely nuts during the WNBA All-Star game. And I love that Caitlin was like, yeah, they wanted to put me in, but I was like, nah, she's doing okay. We'll let her kind of stay in control of it. And here's the thing. Nobody would have heard about this if it wasn't for Caitlin Clark. Okay, this is why she's important. This is why she should have been on the Olympic team. The only reason why people tuned in to watch the WNBA All-Star game is because we knew that Caitlin Clark was playing. Okay, and if she doesn't play, if she doesn't get voted in by the fans, then so many people would have missed out on the opportunity to see how great of a player Orike Ogunbowale is. Okay, just being around Caitlin Clark brings growth to not only the WNBA, but it also brings growth to the brands of the best players in the WNBA. That's why it never made much sense to me as to why these WNBA players didn't like Caitlin Clark. Sure, I can understand being annoyed and frustrated at this idea, or this truth, as a matter of fact, this truth that she was a bigger star than all of them before she even stepped into the league. Okay, I can understand being annoyed and frustrated at this idea that this 21-year-old is just going to show up and be great immediately. Okay, like I can understand being frustrated and annoyed by that. But the reality of all of this was that her arrival was going to give other women in the WNBA an opportunity to become a star. Okay, like that's what Caitlin Clark being in the WNBA has afforded these other women. Her presence brings eyeballs. And if you ball out in the games that Caitlin Clark is also playing in, like Orike Ogunbowale did in the All-Star game, she can turn you into a star. Okay, now I, before this year, had never watched the WNBA, didn't have any sort of interest in it. My dad, same boat. My dad called me while I was in Arkansas after the game, and we didn't talk about Caitlin Clark like very much. You know, he was like, "Did you watch?" I was like, "Yes." And then he said, Caitlin Clark was fine. Did you see the other girl, Orike? And then he poorly pronounced her name. Okay. Like we talked about Ogunbowale the entire time because she was great. Right. And she clearly, is great. And from this point on, like I have to believe that more people are going to tune in to watch the Dallas Wings play because they saw how great of a player Ogunbowale is in this All-Star game. Okay, this is why Caitlin Clark is important. This is why we talk about how Caitlin Clark is going to grow the league because we're going to see things like this from time to time that are only going to raise interest not only in Caitlin Clark, but in the rest of the league as well. And this is also why Caitlin Clark should have been on the Olympic team because people would have watched and they would have gotten to see these other women and how great of basketball players they are. Now, football season is quickly approaching. Thursday, July 25th. We've got the start of Colts training camp. Other teams have already reported. We've got guys not showing up to practice, demanding new contracts. All the drama is happening. And while that's been going on, Team USA is in these drama-filled basketball games. The men, over the weekend, they almost lost to South Sudan. They almost lost to Germany yesterday. I'm talking about all that when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
In America, the zip code you're born into can determine your future. If this baby was born a couple miles away, his chances of dropping out of school skyrocket. Born 5 miles farther, his chances of experiencing violent crime rise. But just one town over, his chances at a healthier life improve. At the Y, our programs help all kids thrive, no matter where they're from. Support your local Y at ymca.net/for-a-better-us.
More winners, more often. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy's Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
The real Jonathan Smith Show back on the air here at Indy Sports Ticket. Dan Dockett Show coming up next from noon to 3. Download that Indy Sports Ticket app so you can tune in and listen. I'm sure he will have thoughts on the Colts and training camp and the NFL and all these different things. Otter Creek joining the show today at 2 o'clock because he won the Indy 500 driver pool, right? Which that feels like that happened forever ago. Jeez. Time moves very quickly, and Colts camp starting on Thursday supports that statement. And, I've been thinking a lot about Colts training camp and just, what I was going to say about it, because it's one of these things where I think training camp was just created for us to overreact to the things that happen. Okay, I think very little of what we talk about coming out of training camp, really impacts anything. I think it's just we've been so deprived of football content that anything that happens, we are going to address it. And I got to be honest, I don't want to hear jack squat coming out of Colts training camp. I don't want to hear a peep whenever any player, coach, general manager, scout, water boy, whoever, whenever anyone affiliated with the Colts speaks to the media, I want to hear nothing but boring. I want nothing but boring. I want plain, boring coach talk. How was practice today, coach? I was good. I thought we did this well. I thought we did that well. But, we still have a lot of things to work on, though. That is what I want to hear. Okay? I want for it to be apparent that everyone on this Colts or a part of this Colts organization went to the Bill Belichick School of Press Conferences, where he teaches people how to be really boring and not give anything away. Okay, I don't want to hear about how great Anthony Richardson is. That is the last thing that I want to hear about. Okay, I saw some crap on Twitter over the weekend with these Colts fans getting excited about how Anthony Richardson and other members of the offense worked out together in California between OTAs and training camp. Oh, look at this. They're locked in. They're ready to go. Who cares? Every team does that. Okay, the Kansas City Chiefs did that. Also, the Colts did this last year, okay? This is not a big deal. Everybody does this. Okay, like small things like that don't need to become stories. Okay, I want for the Colts, I want the stories coming out of their training camps to be nothing but boring. Okay, the New England Patriots dynasty produced nothing but boring training camp stories. That's it. Okay, the only question surrounding their team was whether or not they were going to win the Super Bowl, because that was the standard in New England. Okay, and also, they didn't give away any other information or anything to have people discuss anything else. Okay, the only question that should surround the Colts and this Colts training camp should be whether or not they'll win the division. That should be the question about this team. Okay, I don't need news stories. I don't need the Indy Star or whoever or ESPN or any of these guys writing things about Anthony Richardson or Adonai Mitchell or any of these dudes. Okay, I don't need players or coaches or general managers or anyone running to the podium to just wax poetic about Anthony Richardson. I don't need it. I don't need Chris Ballard talking about how great this draft class is. I don't need it. I want to hear boring, because boring is focused. Okay, the loud teams that get covered the most during training camp tend to not do very well. Okay, there's a reason why most teams that wind up on Hard Knocks don't do well, because those training camps are always loud. They are, because all the drama, we get to see all of it. If you're hearing about the drama, that's not good. Okay, the fact that the Jets have dominated the sports news cycle, or they did yesterday, and they're going to continue to do so with Aaron Rodgers missing a couple of OTA practices. Hassan Reddick hasn't shown up for camp. That's not good. That is not what you want to hear. That is what dysfunctional teams do. Okay, the Browns, one of the most dysfunctional franchises in the history of sports for a long time. When you would hear stuff about them, it was never anything good. It wasn't. I need to hear boring from the Colts this year because boring is focused. Just look at the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay, in the offseason, they had some arrest issues. Okay, but on the field, stuff's boring. Okay, the question for them is it's all about the three-peat, baby. Right? It's not about Xavier Worthy, even though he seems like he's going to be the most entertaining rookie that enters the league this year because of the 4.21 speed and breaking the NFL Combine record. Right? Despite that, that's not what it's about. When I watch these shows and they bring up the Kansas City Chiefs, it's about, hey, are these guys gonna three-peat? That's what it's all about. Because the Chiefs, even though they've started training camp, they haven't given any other sorts of story out for people to discuss. Right? And that's why with the Colts, like that's kind of the expectation that I have. Just don't give people anything else to discuss other than whether or not you as a team will win or lose this season. That is what I want coming out of this Colts training camp. I don't want to hear about leaps. I don't want to hear about how Anthony Richardson threw a 112-yard dot to somebody. I don't want to hear about it. Okay, I don't want to hear about the rookies. I don't want to hear about how great Leatu Latu looks. I don't want to hear how great Adonai Mitchell looks. I want to hear about why this team won't win. That's really it. Okay, give me all the boring things. Okay, if the Colts are popping up on First Take or, any of these, debate shows or opinion shows, that is not a good sign. Okay? So, Colts, do yourself a favor. You haven't been very good lately. Be quiet, get to work, and focus. Okay? Because it's so much harder to focus when other things are going on. Like for the Jets, it's got to be a pain in the butt. And even harder to practice when they know that when they're done, they're going to be asked about Hassan Reddick and Aaron Rodgers. For the Packers, it's got to suck to know that you're going to go out, you're going to bust your butt, you're hopefully going to practice well. And then when you're done, you aren't going to be asked questions about how you practice. You're going to be asked questions about Jordan Love and how do you feel about him not wanting to practice and all these extra distractions. That's the last thing that the Colts need, and it should be the last thing that they want. But given this Colts regime, something tells me we are not going to have a quiet and boring training camp. Moving on to Team USA, LeBron James, that's really what I'm going to talk about here. Over the weekend, Team USA, the Olympic team, they were tested, to say the least. And, LeBron James, there's a video of him being like, I like it when we're tested. I don't. I think you should have beaten South Sudan by 20, and I think that you should have beaten Germany by 15. Instead, you beat South Sudan by 1. LeBron James hits, a game-winning layup with 8 seconds left. And then they beat Germany, who's much better than South Sudan for what it's worth. They beat them by 4. Come on now. These games, they're clearly stories, especially of what happened down the stretch. Watching USA basketball, whether it's, FIBA or the Olympics, either one, it's just, I enjoy it because you kind of learn the hierarchy amongst the best players in the NBA. Okay, when Team USA was trying to come back down from 16 in the third quarter, what did they do? They put the ball in LeBron James's hands down the stretch for the last shot when they're down by 1. What'd they do? They put the ball in LeBron James's hands. 39-year-old LeBron James. They said, hey, bring us home, which is not what I was expecting. I'll be honest with you. Okay, Steve Kerr being the head coach, it's I don't know. I kind of thought that they'd go to Steph Curry since that's a guy who's knocked down big shots time and again for Steve Kerr. Maybe it's maybe they'll go to Anthony Edwards, right? Young guy, can really kind of get to the rim whenever he wants, really talented scorer. It's nah, we're going to go to the 39-year-old. It's you sure? You don't want to put the ball in the hands of reigning NBA champion Jason Tatum? No? Oh, what about Joel Embiid? There's not a guy in the world who can guard Joel Embiid. Do we want to give him the ball? No, we're going to give it to 39-year-old LeBron James, and we're going to allow him to run the offense and go be awesome. Go be great. Just, go be himself, because LeBron James is truly great. And then against Germany yesterday, it was the exact same thing. LeBron James, 39 years old, best player on the floor in the fourth quarter. Scored 11 of his 20 points in the fourth, didn't miss a shot, pulled down 3 of his 6 rebounds. He outscored Germany by himself. LeBron had 11, Germany had 8. Okay, like no one should be doing this at the age of 39. Okay? He should be like Carmelo Anthony right now. Like, Jonathan, I don't keep up with Carmelo Anthony. What does Carmelo Anthony do? As of today, or as of just, right now, in this phase of life for Melo, you know what he does? He travels around the country, pops on random podcasts, and watches his son play basketball. That's it. That is what LeBron should be doing right now. LeBron James should have spent last week in Las Vegas watching Bronny James debut in the Summer League. That's, I feel like just from what we've heard about him as a dad, that's undoubtedly where he would have been. Okay, he should have been at Nike's Peach Jam to watch Bryce James play in it. That's what he should do. Or that's what he should be doing. But he's like, nah, let me just go be the best player on Team USA this week. Okay, look, whether you're a LeBron James fan or not, you have to acknowledge just how insane this is. Okay, he is the best 39-year-old athlete ever. Sorry, Tom Brady. He's the second best basketball player ever. And if you put him at 1, I'm not going to push back. But all right, that's fine. Whatever. I understand that. What we are seeing is unprecedented. And we may never see it. We will probably never see this again. Right? And as I'm sitting there and I'm watching LeBron James just do these absurd things down the stretch at 39 years old against NBA players. Because a few weeks ago I said that, Team USA wasn't just going to cruise to the gold medal, right? Because other teams have really good players as well. Okay, like South Sudan, the team that was 40-point underdogs to Team USA, yeah, they have NBA guys on their roster. They do. Okay, they've got a guy on their roster who's like the 4th-ranked high schooler in the country, okay? Like they have some dudes that can really play. Right? And so I'm sitting back and I'm watching LeBron James do this against good players. And it's in moments like these, against South Sudan and Germany where I see LeBron James take over, that I sit back and I'm like, I can be upset at the Lakers not telling him no, but then I see him do this and I'm like, okay, Lakers, give him whatever he wants. Okay? Like what we've seen these last, 2 games from LeBron James is why the Lakers do not tell him no, even if he is 39 years old. He's still one of the best basketball players in the world by far, right? And because of that, the Lakers decided to hire his podcast buddy as the head coach. Because of that, they decided to draft his kid with the 55th overall pick. What's the most important thing in sports in general, but especially in basketball? You have to make your star happy. Okay, and even though LeBron James is 39, he's probably going to retire in like 2 or 3 years. He's still the star, not just from a social standpoint, but also from just a basketball standpoint. Okay, and you have to make your star happy, even if they're 39 years old, like LeBron James is. That's going to do it for the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Don't have time, sadly, to get to Top 10 Tuesday. I did it earlier in the show. If you want to check out the podcast, follow us at Ticket1430. It'll be tweeted out whenever the podcast of the show is up. Thanks again to Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts for joining the show earlier. The Dan Dockett Show coming up here in about 5 minutes, noon to 3. Download that Indy Sports Ticket app wherever you get your apps so that you can tune in and listen. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Real Jonathan Smith Show. I'll be back on the air tomorrow from 10 to noon. Make sure you tune in. It's going to be a good show. I'll talk to you guys then.